Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I am a retired police officer and one of the professional shooters. So, how many of you, this is where you guys get to participate, because I'm not doing this by myself. How many of you are first-time ralliers? How many have been to a rally before? All right. Well, as you can tell, there's many more of us that are first-time ralliers, and this is outside of our comfort zone. So if we do something wrong, you people that have been there before, just keep us in line and let us know. So I was going to do the whole, I'm going to say something very loud, and you guys are going to respond very loud, okay? Right. Are you guys here for the Second Amendment? That was good. That was really good. You guys are professionals already. All right, I'm going to get out of the way because my goal here is to not make us melt, and I praise the Lord that He's provided some cloud cover. You know what? Let's say a real quick prayer, okay? Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this time being here in front of the. I always get sappy when it comes time to be in front of the Lord, in front of the Capitol. So, please bless this time together. Please bless our country and our leaders, and let them know that we aren't the bad guys. In Jesus' name. And the crowd said, Amen! Amen! Thank you, guys. You're such a good team. Oh, yeah, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. We're really winging it here.
We've got a flag and everything.
We got a flag. Here's the flag. Huh?
Bring it up there.
We have a big one, too. Yeah, put the flag up here.
Bigger than she is. It's going to blow her away. I know. It's going to fly away.
All right, here we go. I pledge the allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Woo!
Yeah, make some noise for that. The one thing that I want to say to you guys is that I am one person, and you guys are here pretty much because I called you. You responded. And I challenge you to go home and do the same thing in your home states, and take people to meet them in your home states. And even these people that are behind us in this building and are flanking buildings, they have offices in their home state as well. So it's really important that we continue doing this. So I'm going to go on to our speakers. Our agenda is going to be several speakers, and I don't know what you do after that, so I think drink water. So our first speaker is Amanda Suffecool. She is from Ohio. Thank you. She is an engineer who spends her spare time sharing her love of country, Constitution, and Second Amendment. For more than 13 years, she has been an NRA certified instructor in 8 disciplines, along with FEMA, OSHA, and ALICE active shooter response. In 2014, Amanda initiated the not-for-profit Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition. Realize has hosted many public education seminars, including a police and community relations panel discussion, an annual appraisal fair, the Preppers Ball, a church self-defense program, and multiple Women's Days at the Range programs. Amanda, along with her brother Rob Campbell, hosts the Firearms Education Show, Eye on the Radio, 5 hours of gun radio per week. So be sure and support her and tune into her. Amanda?
Let me see if I can unfold this now. Okay. My topic, can you hear me? Okay, my topic is truly the Second Amendment. There are certain statements, documents in history that invokes an emotional response. Being here at the Capitol is one of them. But you know the others. We the people of the United States of America, 407 years ago. I have a dream. Do you, Amanda Suffecool, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Those statements invoke an emotional response to me. The Second Amendment invokes an emotional response with me. So here's the words. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. But is it? Because there's people. And we all know we've run into them, the antis, but But they're anti-what? They're anti-gun, anti-Constitution, anti-parts of the Constitution, maybe only the Second Amendment. I'm not sure, and I don't understand why they take the stand that they're taking. So why are the antis trying to tear apart our Constitution? In the name of safety, in the name of reasonableness, and in the dreaded name of compromise. Let me give you my opinion of compromise. Compromise is defending the Second Amendment similar to the Sphinx. It's large. Wait a minute. It's obvious. It's out there. It's royal. It's unapologetic. It's sitting there in the desert, just sitting there watching over time. But because it's there, in the wind, in the rain, in the sun, day after day, year after year, it's being eroded. It's wearing just a bit more. Creep, chip, erode. Compromise on the Second Amendment, on those 27 words, is exactly like the nose on the Sphinx. Erosion, and it's not coming back. Soon, that compromise is going to be the norm. Let me ask you, when you visualize the Sphinx, do you visualize it like it was built, like it was intended, with its nose fully formed, or like you see it right now, where it's slowly eroding and it's noseless, sitting there on its face, on its royal face, watching over the Egyptian desert, but noseless? That's compromise. The antis are small grains of sand, annoying. And so many people say, don't worry about them. They're not really important. It's not really important. They're not a threat. Our gun rights are not under attack. But are they? I really think they are. So they're trying to tear apart the Second Amendment, word by word, bit by bit. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Bear arms. And you're hearing them. They're talking about arms as if they're muskets and saying that the Second Amendment only intended muskets. So does that mean the First Amendment only intends printing presses and not computers, cell phones, cameras, any of the technology that we enjoy today? I don't think so. Then they talk about the well-regulated militia. And then they say the militia is only the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the Marines. It's not. In Ohio, my home state, they covered this as recently as 1997. They defined the militia in the state of Ohio. And so Ohio Revised Code 5923, not that you want to cite code, but facts matter. They defined militia as two different things. There's the organized militia, and that is any citizen between 17 and 67 who is not handicapped and who is a member of the Ohio National Guard, the Naval Militia, or the Ohio Military, including the reserves. So that's the official militia as Ohio's defined it. But then they go on, and this is the capper, ladies. The unorganized militia is all other citizens of the state of Ohio between 17 and 67 that are able-bodied. We are the militia. So then in Ohio, it's been defined, and I'm hoping that in your state it's been defined. But the militia is me, and it's you, and it's you, and it's you. So let's move on to shall not be infringed. Compromise is infringement. Infringement is defined as an act so to limit or undermine something, to encroach upon it. Compromise is encroachment, creeping, undermining, erosion. We're seeing it. So then, let's go back to being necessary to the security of a free state. It's shoved right in the middle there. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. And then the antis, you hear them, you see them. They're trying to define our guns by its purpose. You hear them. They're talking about what gun has a hunting purpose or a sporting purpose, or then they give it another nickname, an assault purpose. So what happened to the design to provide for the security of a free state purpose? That is the gun that I want, the one that's designed to provide for the security of a free state. So here's the deal. I want you, when you hear the Second Amendment, to think emotionally, to think with your heart, so that when you hear those simple 27 words, repeat after me, all of us, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There you go. So I have one last question for you. Do you, the women of the DC Project, and some of the guys that are hanging with us, take the Second Amendment to hold and protect from this day forward? I do. Thank you. Where did I go?
Over here.
Okay, here you go.
Nice job.
Alrighty. Am I supposed to say something inspirational right now or just introduce somebody?
Next.
All right, next. Corinne Mosher. She's from Missouri? Oh, that's not. I know that. Susie's from Missouri. And Corinne is from Kansas. So Corinne attended the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where she studied at the prestigious Conservatory of Music. She's going to sing for us a little ditty. In 2012, after privately teaching for 6 years, she left her music studio and began working as the lead instructor and director of education at Centerfire Shooting Sports. Corinne entered the sport of competitive shooting, 3-gun, in early 2014 and has quickly gained a national and international following on social media sites. Corinne is married to a local police officer and has a 9-year-old daughter who also enjoys shooting and Kansas City Royals baseball. Any fans? Just one. Just you.
My name is Corinne Mosher. I was not born in 1985 in San Diego, California. I am not the oldest of 4 children. I am not a wife and a mother. I am not a firearms instructor and a concealed carry instructor or a professional 3-gunner. I don't love listening to audiobooks or singing in the shower or playing my violin. I don't love baseball or sitting on the front porch watching a Kansas thunderstorm roll by. I have no memories. I have no passions, no likes, no loves. I don't dream, I don't have a name, and I have no home. This is, of course, not how I see myself. But this is who I am to someone who has chosen me as a victim. The reality of the world that we live in today is that every day I step out my front door, I step straight into a victim selection pool. It is my job to make myself look as unattractive as a target as possible. And if that isn't enough to deter criminal attention, then to use determination and any physical tools at my disposal to create an opportunity to escape with my life. Because my life is worth it. I am worth defending. How do I build my defense? Give a soldier the choice between going into battle with either a shield or a sword, and which will he choose? He will choose the shield every time. Excuse me. Weapons can be found, made, and improvised. A shield must be strong and impenetrable. For the stronger your shield, the less likely it is that you'll have to go to your sword. The shield is, of course, a metaphor. It represents knowledge, mindset, and awareness. Knowledge is the difference between knowing that danger is out there and knowing what it looks like. It takes vigilance and practice to understand criminal behaviors and recognize what they look like in real life. Being prepared to defend yourself requires developing a heightened sense of awareness, which increases your ability to hone in on a potentially dangerous situation before they become active attacks. Rick Staples is a 38-year law enforcement veteran, and for a few years after his retirement, I was his second instructor during his defensive pistol, rifle, and shotgun courses. At some point during each of these classes, he would turn to the students and ask, if you knew exactly when and where you were going to be attacked, which weapon would you bring to the fight? They would take a moment to ponder on this, and then they would reply with either a shotgun, my .45, or my rifle. Then they would turn to Rick and ask him the same question. He would smirk just a little bit, and then say, if I knew exactly when and where I was going to be attacked, I'd make sure I wasn't there. As a self-defense instructor, I have met with many individuals who are looking to purchase a gun in order to feel safer. Instead of working towards increasing their personal awareness and seeking advanced training in the use of the firearm for defense, They use the firearm as if it has magical powers to ward off evil simply by being in their environment. But as the father of modern pistolcraft, Colonel Jeff Cooper, once said, owning a handgun doesn't make you any more armed than owning a guitar makes you a musician. Too often we develop a false sense of security in the simple knowledge that we could use a gun if we needed to. Your defensive tool will only be as effective as you are. You will have to save yourself. If you have not mentally prepared to use determined violence against another human being, have not physically trained yourself to be safe, efficient, and effective with the defensive tool of your choice, and do not have it on you at the time you need it, you may not live to regret it. Everyone I have met who has been forced to take deadly action against another human being has said they wished there could have been another way. Good people don't want to hurt people, but I am even more reluctant to surrender my life and bodily safety to the depraved intentions of a criminal. And so we train each day to do the thing we pray each night we will never have to do. This is why we sharpen our sword. Train in simple physical maneuvers that will help buy you time to escape. Develop skills and the mindset to be violent if your life is in danger. You are the weapon. There are endless tools at your disposal, but regardless of the means, be brutal. Become a force that your opponent has to deal with and make him regret choosing you. I will arm myself with knowledge as my shield and determination as my sword, so that I can smile on the good in this world and look into the face of evil with confidence and say, you can't have me or mine. Not today, not ever.
Thank you, Corinne. And thank you, security force. All right. Nobody knows who's coming next, so I feel like I'm a little bit of a slot player right now. Let's go Amy Dillon in the house. Amy Dillon, she's a former Marine Corps drill instructor and combat marksmanship instructor. Amy served 12 years active duty and is certified as concealed weapons permit instructor by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, State of Utah Bureau of Criminal Identification, and Georgia Carry Organization. Please don't get any more certifications. She is also a certified NRA instructor and Chief Range Safety Officer, as well as a Personal Safety Academy instructor for the SABRE Civilian Safety Awareness Program. Amy is employed as a firearms instructor by Palmetto State Armory and freelance writer. But I can tell you this about Amy, is that she's 4'11", and she looks cute, but wait until you see the pictures of her in her prior assignments, because she looks pretty intimidating in that uniform and that scowl on her face. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Dianna. Let's try to get through this wind. Hi, my name is Amy Dillon. I am just one of the many people who support the Second Amendment of the United States of America. 18 years ago, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. On my enlistment, I took this oath. I, Amy Dillon, do so solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Although my active service has ended, there was not an expiration date to the oath I took. First and foremost, I am a patriot. My loyalty remains to God, country, and my fellow countrymen, my family. As such, I have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to safeguard the freedoms afforded by citizenship in this great country. Thinking of this, I'm reminded of something our former president, John F. Kennedy, said in his 1961 inaugural address. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Ask not for what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. In response to these iconic words, I stand here today with the DC Project to represent the evolving face of support for the Second Amendment and to communicate the importance of a well-armed citizenry to our elected officials. This nation is under constant attack, especially in light of events that have happened as early as this year. Threat from aggressive foreign powers who oppose our way of life and seek to usurp our liberties through violent acts of terrorism. Our best defense against domestic terrorism is a well-armed citizenry. You know, earlier today I visited the U.S. Capitol and read this incredible quote by former Senator Rebecca Felton of Georgia, which she gave in a speech to the U.S. Senate on November 22nd, 1922. She said, "When the women of the country come in and sit with you, I pledge you that you will get ability, integrity of purpose, exalted patriotism, and unstinted usefulness." These words still ring true today. My name is Amy Dillon. I am a United States Marine Corps veteran. I am a woman. I am an American. And I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. Thank you for showing up today and showing your support for the Second Amendment and the women of the DC Project.
Thank you, Amy. All right. Let's get, I'm going to get my pregnant little Venezuelan up here, so if she needs to go sit down, she can. Gabby Franco, if you can't tell which one she is. Gabby is most widely known for being a contestant on History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 and Top Shot All-Star Season. She has been involved in competition shooting for more than 20 years. In September 2000, she participated in the 27th Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia. Thanks, Amanda. Gabby also won gold and silver medals in many international shooting competitions. Today, Gabby teaches firearm classes around the U.S. to civilians and law enforcement, but calls Dallas her home. Moment of silence for the Dallas police officers last night. Gabby is an NRA news commentator, member of the Remington shooting team, and author of Troubleshooting, Mastering Your Pistol Marksmanship. Gabby, thanks for being here.
Hi, I'm Gabby Franco. I am an Olympian, and as Di said, I participated in the Olympic Games in 2000 Sydney. But I also left behind the opportunity to go to the Olympic Games in Athens 2004 in order to move to the United States, because I knew this was a country where if I worked hard, I could succeed. Because this was a country where I could freely talk about politics because of the First Amendment. And I could finally be in a country where I could effectively defend myself thanks to the Second Amendment. I was born and raised in Venezuela, a country blessed by Mother Nature, with a beautiful land and the largest oil reserve in the world, but condemned by those who rule her, who little by little have deprived Venezuelans of their inalienable rights, liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. In the last 17 years, Venezuela has been ruled by a socialist government that has seeded hate between Venezuelans by emphasizing differences between social classes, telling the poor to hate the rich, instead of creating jobs and motivating the poor to work hard and become achievers. It has destroyed small businesses by increasing unrealistic wages, but restricting products' retail prices, and has expropriated over 1,000 companies in the first 10 years. it has limited the food supply, creating a crisis in the country. In January of this year, it was estimated that the scarcity of food was between 50 and 80%, and crime increased 444% in 14 years of socialism and corruption. But you may ask, what does this have to do with the Second Amendment? Why do Venezuelans don't protest and fight to take their country back? The reality is that before Chavez got into power, Venezuelans were allowed to own and apply for concealed carry licenses. Gun ranges and gun shops existed. Crime rate was 19 per 100,000. Yes, there was crime, but people had the same equalizer tool to protect themselves. Venezuelans were able to carry concealed firearms. The Venezuelan government issued gun control measures that included confiscation of registered firearms, elimination of gun shops, and the complete ban of gun sales. And yet, according to the Venezuelan Violence Observatory, it is estimated that over 27,000 murders occurred in 2015, pushing the homicide rate to 90 per 100,000 residents. Gun control has done nothing to control crime. Gun control has done nothing to control mass shooting. But what it has done is leave the Venezuelan citizens defenseless against criminals who by trade do not follow the law. But those who impose the rules do not live like the regular citizen. They don't live the struggle of being kidnapped, raped, or terrorized in their own neighborhoods. Millions of Venezuelans are terrorized by armed criminals every day. I wish my youngest brother and his generation, those who are between 20 and 30, were able to live and enjoy the rights and safety the Second Amendment provides us here in the United States. The Second Amendment gives us the ability to protect ourselves, our families, and fellow citizens. Let's get back to the second question. Why Venezuelans don't protest and fight to take their country back? Well, the truth is that Venezuelans have protested several times in the last 12 years, and the government has responded with excessive force. Citizens cannot fight with just throwing rocks against firearms. Citizens cannot take their country back when their rights have been taken away. The sad part is that things have to get worse before they get better. Ladies and gentlemen, our rights and our freedoms are not untouchable. Never, ever take them for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. She's a little firecracker. And I'm proud I don't know if I said it. I feel like I've said it a lot over the past several days, but I'm really proud of the girls that volunteered to come here and be a part of this. I think we've got a really powerful message. The next speaker is going to be Cheryl Todd. You're supposed to clap. Cheryl Todd is the owner of azfirearms.com, Pot of Gold Estate Auctions, and owner and a co-host of Gun Freedom Radio. She has 30 years experience in business and holds a degree in psychology. A wife of over 30 years, mother and grandmother, Cheryl speaks to the value of her Second Amendment rights through the lens of self-protection and instilling those values in the generations to come. Cheryl is a lifetime member of the NRA, the ASRPA, the AZCDL, and supports Refuse to Be a Victim, Child Safe, and the Eddie Eagle program. It sounds like you support safety.
I'm all about safety.
All right, and then her husband, Danny, thank you for being here. You guys, and her family. She brought her whole clan.
Thank you so much for coming out on this sort of warm day. It's not too horrible with the cloud cover, but thank you for being here. I am Cheryl Todd. I am a business owner. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. And I'm a grandma. And somewhere out in the crowd is my little 2-year-old grandbaby, Raylan. And that means that we have come to Washington, D.C. with 3 generations. 3 generations to come and speak with our representatives here in our nation's capital. What an incredible opportunity this is for our family and our family's legacy. As Di mentioned, my husband and I are small business owners. We do have a gun store, right? And we are hosts of a radio show called Gun Freedom Radio. So we do have a vested interest in the Second Amendment as far as a business standpoint. But for Dan and I, it goes so much deeper than that. For us, it is a legacy issue. We are constantly thinking about the condition that we're going to pass the world along, the country along into the next generations. And we think every day of our grandchild and other people's grandchildren. And we think, what are we doing in our lifetime to protect and preserve our rights and our liberties for those next generations? On our radio show, we begin and end every single show with a quote by Ronald Reagan when he said, "Our freedoms are only 1 generation away from extinction." And I take that a step further when I say our freedoms are always just 1 generation away from extinction. And when I look at the current political landscape, I fear that that generation has been born and is voting. For months now, one of our top 3 presidential candidates has been an avowed socialist, not a closet socialist, an avowed socialist in America. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I mean no disrespect to the Feel the Burn crowd, and we might have some here in the crowd with us today. I just mean that there has been an important and distinctive shift. Something is different than when I was younger. And one of the other top candidates, the female candidate, serious presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, has promised to undermine our Second Amendment rights and do away with them if she possibly thought she could. In past generations, that stance would have been a campaign ender. But today it is a portion of a potentially winning presidential campaign. So, it would be cool to say I voted for the first female American president. But when I stop and consider that placing that vote is also voting against some vital constitutional rights that allow me to protect my life and the lives of my child and my grandchild. And for me, that's no choice at all. In my lifetime, I have never seen such outright disdain for a portion of our Constitution as I have recently witnessed towards the Second Amendment. I've never also been so thankful that our forefathers understood the necessity to write the words "shall not be infringed." So voting is one way that we have a voice, a say, a way to influence the direction that the future takes. And it is vital to vote this November for the next president. If you care at all about your Second Amendment rights, you have to be engaged and you have to vote, cast your vote accordingly for a viable candidate who can reasonably be expected to win. But what do we do in between elections? Some of us sit around and we grumble, right? Some of us watch the news, get frustrated, get on social media and hashtag away, right? But then some of us do something. Some of us hear the call and act and show up Some of us take planes, trains, and automobiles. We take our vacation time. We take time off work, and we meet here in our nation's capital to form relationships with our representatives and our legislators as part of the DC Project. And these awesome ladies, each of you here with me, in front of me, and behind, are part of that freedom-loving, patriotic stuff that will protect and preserve our rights for the next generation. You fine ladies and your families who have traveled here with you have set an awesome example to follow. You have, in 3 short days, changed forever your family's legacy. You have met with your elected officials and voiced your concern for our nation. You've stated your plans to stay in contact with these officials as we begin to change how people view those of us who value our Second Amendment. And I want you, each of you, as you go home and share your stories, share your adventures with others, I want you to ask a question and wait for an answer. The question is, what are you doing to protect and preserve our rights and our freedoms for our children and our grandchildren? Thank you so much for being a part of history with me. Instill these lessons and experiences you've learned here this week into your children and grandchildren because, and I quote Ronald Reagan once again, if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I like Ronald Reagan. I was a little bitty when he was president, but I've heard a lot about him now. Okay, next is going to be Kristi McMains. She has one of the most powerful stories, something that we all pray that never happens to us. That's Kristi. Kristi is an attorney licensed in Indiana and Kentucky. On January 26th of 2016, yes, just this year, Kristi was violently attacked in her car after leaving her law firm in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville. Kristi, a vocal advocate for concealed carry rights, was able to defend and save her life by shooting her attacker with her concealed carry weapon after a significant and terrifying struggle. Since the attack, Kristi has had reconstructive surgery on her hip and moved home to Indianapolis to heal with her friends and family close by. Kristi chose to share her story so that many other women may be motivated to arm themselves and potentially save their own lives, and know that they too can become victors instead of victims. Kristi continues to practice law and loves spending time with her cat Peach and puppy Reagan.
Hello. Unlike everybody else, I did not come prepared, so I do not have a written speech. So please bear with me when I have some ums and to be determined and what have you. Like Di said, my name's Kristi McMains. I'm an attorney from Indianapolis and one-time Kentucky. On January 26th of this year, the unspeakable happened to me. I was tracked leaving my law firm, just a normal day at 6:15 by a man. He followed me from the building I worked at, through a food court, through a walkway, and we rode a 13-second ride up 3 flights on the parking garage together. He waited until I had ran from him. I knew something was wrong. I knew I was in trouble. I had my entire body in my car except my left leg when he body tackled me and stabbed at me with an 8-inch serrated knife. What happened next was the worst and most harrowing and terrifying 3 minutes of my entire life. This man completely overpowered me. I'm not super tiny. I box. I can fight. I was completely overwhelmed that night. I broke all 10 of my nails fighting. I broke a rib. I tore cartilage in my hip. I was hit in the face. I shot my rearview mirror off. And before I could get my gun, I thought I was going to die. Thankfully, I had always carried. I hadn't carry diligently until I heard Kimberly Corban confront President Obama and heard what can happen if someone does not have a weapon nearby. Thank God for that speech because it saved my life. I shot my attacker 3 times that night. He's alive, and I'm actually very thankful for that. I would not want to take a life, I just didn't want mine taken. I did not choose to become an advocate. I did not choose to have my life thrown out there and dissected, everything I do and say and the way I acted. I did not choose for that. The thing that you pray never happens to your daughter, to your wife, to your sister, happened to me. But I'm alive today because of my gun. If I did not have my gun, and I could tell you the details, and most of these wonderful women have heard it, I would be dead. In fact, I almost died. He was coming down at me full force with a knife when my shot finally struck him. I'm so proud to be a part of this, and it means more than you guys will know to me. I've only told my story publicly 2-3 times before this, and within the last 3 days, I think I have exhausted my storytelling capabilities, but I'm going to continue to do so. This is so important in today's day and age. This happens to people. I did not know my attacker. He did not know me. And a man who had nothing but evil and poor intentions tried to take my life and do unspeakable things to me, which he detailed out to me. I thank God every day that I was trained to use a gun. I thank God my father had the foresight to arm my sister, my brother, and I, my mom, and I thank God that I listened and packed. I've made so many connections from this story, including other victims, and I'm telling you, there's nothing quite like commiserating, almost losing your life with someone to become friends for life. My story is not to push a political agenda upon you. Everyone here has their own strong political beliefs. I have mine as well, but me telling you mine does not make a difference. I'm here to tell you the facts of my story. The facts are, without my gun, I would have been murdered. I would have been raped, I would have been kidnapped, and I would have been murdered. I would not be here today. My parents may not even know where I am. So, after that depressing story, I once again want to say how proud I am to be here. I'm looking around. I've been on this lawn many times. I used to live here, but I've never had such an important calling before. So thank you for letting me come out, be vulnerable, share the most excruciating, horrifying moments of my life with you. But I really hope that you take my story and use it and tell your friends, tell your family. This should never happen again, and sadly it will. But hopefully we can stop it from happening just by one woman by sharing this story. Thank you.
Who wants to follow that? Actually, let's go ahead and go to our other powerful story, Kim Corban. She is from, I don't think I have a deal for you, but I'll tell you about Kimberly. She is our Colorado representative, and she too was a victim, and only after her attack did she really start paying attention to the Second Amendment and what it means to carry. So I'm going to let her share her story with you.
Hi, everybody. I kicked my shoes off, so we're going to make this really casual. I am so honored to be here on the lawn with you all today, especially in light of all of the recent tragedies that we've been facing. My name is Kimberly Corban, grew up in Colorado, attended the University of Northern Colorado, and in 2006, in the early morning hours of May 12th, a stranger broke into my college area apartment, held me in my room for 2 hours, and he raped me. I had to lay there at 20 years old thinking that this was how I was going to die. Nobody ever thinks that they're going to be in that position. I was the epitome of the person that this will never happen to me, but it did. Somehow I survived. I immediately reported my attack. He was captured 3 weeks later, picking out his next victims at a nearby apartment complex. I testified in the trial, and he is currently serving 24 years to life in the Department of Corrections in Colorado. Leading up to this, I had suffered PTSD, depression, debilitating seizures. I was flunking out of college. All of these things as a direct result of rape. Someone committed a crime against me, and yet I am the one
with the ramifications of that incident. I decided thinking, well, what can I do? If this had to happen to me, what can I do to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else? And so unlike Kristi, I made the conscious choice to release my name. I wanted that story to be told because for so long I had seen stories in the news about this man and I had seen his face, and I knew that there are so many other women and men out there suffering like I had in silence, and I wanted to be a victim for them. So I went public with my story hoping I could just save one person. I knew that carrying concealed was the best for myself and now my 2 small kids. That's how I chose to train myself. But I had never spoken publicly about it actually until 2013 when my home state started pushing through a lot of gun control legislation. Again, I didn't really know how that would impact me until they came after my college campus trying to make it a gun-free zone. I was a grad school student then, and I got up off of my couch, I went down and sat in front of my senators, and I told them the story of my rape and why, as a student seeking an education, I needed my right to defend myself however I see fit. They luckily killed the concealed carry ban there, but as we've seen in the last few years, this is sweeping the nation now. It's not just a battle in my own state. What's wonderful is that I have got to join amazing women from across the country here in DC to speak to our legislators, the people that we elect to put in office. Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to speak to President Obama on CNN about his gun control executive action and ask him why he felt that it was okay to make my kids and I less safe. Gun-free zones. Crimes that are committed in cities just like this one where we have to be unarmed are not okay. And for an administration to push that is very, very scary. I am not standing before you today as a victim. I'm standing before you as a survivor. I have taken control of my story and I want to share it with as many people as possible because I know how important our rights are. And unfortunately, I had to find out after the fact, but we all don't. What I love about this group is that we don't fit into a box. We don't fit into a mold. Nobody's going to stand out here and wonder, oh, well, that's definitely a pro-Second Amendment group. We don't look like what people like to villainize as the face of Second Amendment rights, but we truly are. It's women across this nation just like us, and I am having such an amazing time representing all of those people here. So I can tell you what an honor it is to stand on this lawn because I don't need representatives that sit in the building behind us on a floor by armed guards and sing and talk about what needs to be done. I would much rather be standing out here with all of you for our rights. So thank you and keep up the great work, everybody.
Thank you, Kimberly. All right, if you guys haven't looked behind you, we're going to get a lot cooler. And please don't leave. We have to do a group deal for John Carter. He will really dislike us in the future. Okay, so the next one's going to be Becky Yackley. Becky is a friend of mine, really, a sister actually, because we kind of bark at each other like sisters. Becky Yackley is a competitive shooter and mother working to promote the Second Amendment through writing for Guns America and organizing youth shooting clinics via 2aheritage.org. Her husband and sons are accomplished shooters as well, and the family has multiple national and world titles as well as All-American and junior records. She can produce, actually. She's a champion producer. She has competed in shooting under NCAA, NRA, USPSA, IPSC, and covered disciplines from 3-gun to small bore, high-power rifle, Palmer rifle, shotgun, summer biathlon, and pistol. This year, she's working on 2 series surrounding shooting for Guns America, one on competitive shooting and one on kids and guns. Becky?
Okay, everyone's hot because I'm hot standing there, so I'm going to talk fast, but not so fast that Di yells at me, especially since I just dropped her phone. So I was asked to speak to you, not because I have a remarkable story like some of these ladies that you just heard, but because the story I'm the story you don't hear about. For those of you who do not know me well, I have what I'll call an alternative lifestyle. My Second Amendment rights are so intertwined with everyday life that it's something I don't really think is unusual until people ask me to repeat myself in casual conversation, because the amount of guns and shooting discussed kind of throws them for a loop. I grew up in the house of a gunsmith, and competing in hunting was a given. I'm the story you don't hear, And while my complete immersion in guns and shooting isn't the common female gun owner story, the safety and everyday nature of guns is the story played out in the majority of gun owners' homes. I grew up in a house full of kids and guns. I have a house now full of kids and guns, and everyone respects them and the power in them. And that power is something I want to highlight. I'm going to share a quote from Thomas Jefferson about America, and I want you to hold that in your mind when you consider the power that the Second Amendment protects. Jefferson said that if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. So hold on to that, and I'll share the rest of my story. So besides a childhood in a house peppered with guns, I've spent a great deal of my adult life with them. I compete, as Di said, with my husband and boys, and we do have national records and NCAA titles, but the bigger accomplishment in all of that is safety. I've spent a good part of the last few years shooting, teaching shooting, writing about and photographing it, and I've traveled across the country for over a decade while my husband was on active duty with the Marine Corps. And that's part of why my story is the one you don't hear. It's not headline news that I've carved out a life with guns safely, but it is something that's missed by so many in the debate on firearms, that guns and gun owners are not something to be feared. My husband's a state trooper also, and the situations I see that are real causes for fear, they have very little to do with your average everyday gun owner. I've also been a part of instructing and running classes in firearms safety and competitive shooting for juniors, kids under 18. And that experience has shown me that kids are not ignorant, and by nature they don't want to be. Their sense of safety, their understanding of our freedom, needs a framework. And our job as parents is to give them that framework to keep them from being ignorant. So many of the mothers here really would like to see firearm safety brought back into schools. We don't embrace ignorance in educating our children about the dangers of motor vehicles or other tools that hold power, and guns should not be any different. I've lived alone for halves of years with my children, traveled the country in a car by myself, lots of time on the way to Di's house. I pull over and sleep where I want, and I feel safe. I've hunted with my kids, taken care of marauding predators, killing our chickens, but that I've felt safe is the one thing that's been a constant. I'm free to take care of myself, and I've never been afraid to travel where I want. I might go for a run at 11 o'clock because it's a beautiful moonlit night on my deserted country road. And some people think I'm nuts, but I'm not afraid, and it's a beautiful night. So that sense of freedom, it's come from my ability to take care of my own safety. Now, before you think that I've got a diluted sense of safety because my husband's a police officer or a Marine, I can tell you I see the need to care for my own safety and that of my kids precisely because of that. I see the lack of time a police officer has to respond to an emergency. I know concretely exactly how long it takes a person to put on the bulletproof vest, the radio, the wire, the mic, add the uniform, grab the squad car keys, and roll out, because I've helped him get in the car for just that purpose. So I see tragedies that could be avoided if people would live up to their duty of personal responsibility. In a time where people actively attack police officers, I feel safe, not because of the squad car in our driveway, but because I know I have the power and duty to take care of my own safety. The cop in the family is usually gone helping someone else, so it's on me. I've lived in places where our cars were broken into. We lived in a neighborhood where we all worked to get the police to investigate a house we knew was dealing drugs. And even though I knew nobody was coming quick, because we tried several times, I never felt a sense of fear. I never lived with fear because I knew that I was responsible for myself and I had the freedom to take care of myself and my children. So I really attribute this to being raised in the firearms community. In the component of our freedom, our firearms, were respected. I was raised to understand the power that our right to self-protection gives us. That power is something to be respected and protected. The only reason I live free to pursue my happiness is because someone back in history fought for that freedom. I need to respect their sacrifice and protect the freedom that they gained for me. So to go back to Jefferson's words, we can't expect to be both free and blissfully ignorant of the realities of the world we live in. The reality is there are people who recognize the power that Americans have simply because they're arms or have the potential to be arms. And that potential for power is what holds those who would trample our freedom in check. We've come sort of full circle when we allow our government to question one of our fundamental rights, the right to protect ourselves. Our forefathers fought and died for that freedom, and the power that guns gave them was the reason they were able to do that. The assault rifle of their day, as Senator Russell said the other day, it was the Brown Bess. It was the black powder musket. So don't let anybody tell you, the names assault rifles. They had assault rifles back when the Constitution was formed, and they just had a different name. But once they purchased that freedom, the simple fact that all Americans have the potential for power, that potential is found in our Second Amendment right to protect our own life and liberty, once that purchase was made, all we need those who would threaten our liberty to recognize is that potential for power. We all have it, and it can be activated. The potential in each American, unified under the Second Amendment, and the freedom it ensures, gives Americans a power greater than any government, greater than any army. That some allow that freedom to be questioned for even a second, it harkens back to Jefferson's words and makes them sound like more of a warning that we can never rest our minds. America never was ignorant. She's free because her people were armed, not only with guns, but with the righteous knowledge that all men are created free, and every one of us has the right and power to protect ourselves. So keep up the good work, ladies. Keep those who would fall into the sleep of ignorance aware that they're accountable for their own safety. When they want to pretend America's freedom wasn't purchased by those willing to fight, remind them that that thinking is ignorant, and ignorant is something America never was and never will be.
Thank you, my sister. Okay, so we're going to have an interruption, and we have our keynote speaker, Gayle Trotter. Now, before I introduce her, I want you guys to be quiet and listen to me boss you around. We need to do something for John Carter. It's going to be the I am the Second Amendment deal. So whoever wants to be in this needs to kind of line up behind me with the Capitol in the background. And then Gayle is going to give us her speech with us facing this way, okay? So everybody kind of just move around this way if you want in on this. That means quickly, because if you didn't look over your left shoulder, it's coming. Guys, you guys can come too. You guys are welcome. All you guys. Anybody who wants to be the Second Amendment, get in here with us because we appreciate you coming. You want signs in front? He likes it. You guys want to be the Second Amendment? Get in here. Oh, this is so awesome. Okay, what am I doing? Because I've just totally lost all train of thought. Okay, should you want us to practice? Do it a couple of times? Sure, why not? Okay, the line's going to be I am, little pause, the Second Amendment. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I am the Second Amendment.
One more time.
Yeah, you guys can get fired up afterwards.
All right. Ready? And we're going to go crazy at the end.
All right, go.
Mild crazy. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I am the Second Amendment.
This is how my wedding went. One more time. Close-ups. Okay. Shooters ready. Stand by.
I am the Second Amendment.
That's it? Okay. All right, so if you guys want to have a seat here, or anyway, we're going to stay in this area, and then Gayle is going to address us. I'm going to turn this around. Can you guys hear in the back if we just leave it this way? Huh?
Yes.
Okay, turn it to us. Okay, I'm going to talk about Gayle. If you guys want to spread out and get off of Gayle's face here. Gayle Trotter is from Washington, D.C. She's a mother of 6, a columnist, a political analyst, and an attorney who regularly appears on TV. Most recently on Fox News Channel, The Kelly File, in Buzz Media, contributes to The Hill, The Daily Caller, Town Hall, and other well-known political websites. Gayle has an insider's view of Washington, D.C., serving as senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, vice president of the Kirkpatrick Society, and co-founder of the law firm in Metro D.C. area. Gayle first attracted national attention, media attention in 2013 with her testimony before the United States Judiciary Committee hearing on gun rights and gun violence in America. Gayle? Oh, this is a much better view for the speaker.
I am so excited and honored to be here with you, and I just want to tell you that I have an amazing speech to share with you. But because we're worried about the rain and because I don't have the podium to use anymore, I'm going to ask you to go to my website, GayleTrotter.com, look for my speech, which is entitled, and you will love this, A Woman's Right to Choose Self-Protection. And instead of giving you this speech, I'm going to tell you, like my girlfriends and some of my best guy friends, I'm going to tell you my experience of going up to the legislature and sharing with them why millions of American women want the guys and gals in this building right here to protect our Second Amendment right to defend ourselves. When the New York Times uses its lead editorial to scold your ideas as being dangerous, you know that you have hit the nerve of the mainstream media. And I have been writing, I'm a lawyer, I write about constitutional issues, I write about entrepreneurship and tax policy, and I have been a lifelong defender of the Second Amendment. And when we had all sorts of mass shootings going on, particularly the one that happened in Aurora, people wanted me to speak out about the Second Amendment. And I found it challenging to look at that type of tragic situation and have something that would speak to the American people to say, I understand that this is very upsetting and emotional. We have the same thing going on in our country right now. We have these terrible crises, and everyone sees the gun violence that happens in our country, and we all want a safer society. And so I started thinking about it. How can I speak to the American people about gun violence in our society? And I was just scrolling around the internet, and I read this story about this woman who was 19 years old in Oklahoma. She lived in a very rural area. Her husband had just passed away from cancer. She had a baby son. She was in her home all by herself, and two men decided that they would break into her home. One of the men had a foot-long hunting knife. Her name was Sarah McKinley. She was in the house by herself with her baby child, and she had a firearm. And she said, they're knocking on the door. What's a reasonable person to do? Call the police. So she gets on the phone. She calls 911. She says, there are two men trying to break down my door. I'm alone in this house with my baby child. And as a mother of six, that just struck fear into my heart reading about this story. And she said, you need to get out here. And they said to her on the dispatch, we cannot get out there in time. The two men broke down her door. She had the firearm, and she thought to herself, in a moment of great distress, I am sure, I can only imagine, it was either going to be him or it was going to be my baby. And it wasn't going to be my baby. And reading this story brought me to tears. And I suddenly realized that women do not have this story represented adequately in our mainstream media. So I just started doing research on my own. I learned through a liberal ACLU holding member, card-carrying member, who is a professor researching violence in the United States. This is something the media never reports. There are 2.5 million defensive gun uses in this country every year. 2.5 million. And as we were hearing from your story, in less than 1% of those cases is the attacker injured or killed. So that is not reported in the media either. And when we hear all these reports of mass shootings, we are not adequately weighing the cost of increased gun control when we think about the fact that gun control only limits the rights of the law-abiding. Because, as another woman shared, it is the stock and trade of criminals that they do not pay attention to the law. It is their profession not to follow the law. So when we increase gun control, when the people in this building decide to limit our Second Amendment rights, then the only people they are hurting are the people who need the great equalizer. Guns are the great equalizer. So after the Newtown massacre, I was asked to come testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee for the first gun hearing after the horrific event when President Obama as Kimberly was mentioning, in 2013, and many legislatures across the country decided that the way to stop these types of mass shootings was to limit the gun rights of the law-abiding, the only people who could effectively oppose these threats of violence in our country. So I was asked to go testify, and I did more research. I went to the website of the Department of Justice under the Obama administration, and they had statistics, and I learned for the first time ever, never heard it from the media, and this might surprise you too, over 90% of violent crime in the United States occurs without a firearm. So in those situations, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're elderly, especially if you have some sort of physical disability, the only effective way you have to fight back in those situations where over 90% of violent victimizations occur without a firearm is to have the great equalizer. Having a firearm, knowing how to use it, allows you to have a fighting chance against someone who wants to make you a victim. So this was a really interesting statistic that I was so honored to share with our senators as they were trying to decide what measures they could put into effect to limit the amount of violence. I also did a lot of research on concealed carry, and I learned that in this one study that they did of 10 states over a 15-year period, states that had enabled law-abiding citizens to conceal carry had less than half the amount of criminal home invasions and violent victimizations. So we have to think of the broad spectrum of crime that happens in the United States. It's not only mass shootings, it's not only murders, it's also rapes, it's also home invasions, it's also assaults. So when we focus just on gun violence, we're not taking into account the entire idea of violence in our society. And we understand that the media is not our friend in this regard. They report false statistics. They rely on studies that have been discredited, that use faulty methodology, that use misleading statistics. I would say one of the most frequent questions I get when I go and speak to groups is, every woman has heard that quote, that they are in more danger if there's a gun in the home than if there's not, and the whole thing about domestic violence. And the truth is, when you look at this study, it was done by a professor at Emory University named Arthur Kellerman, and they looked at 400 homicides. They asked the victims, it was a self-reported study, they asked the victims whether a gun had been owned in the home. And if you go actually look at the study, more of the people who were the homicide victims died of something other than firearms in the home. And that made me start looking at all of the statistics that we like to hear from, we don't like to hear, but we frequently hear from groups like Mayor Bloomberg's Mayors Against Illegal Guns, Moms Demand a Plan. And so I started trying to peel back the layers on these false statistics that they put out there. And I learned, for example, you know, as a personal experience, when you go to the pediatrician, I don't know if you've had this example, but the doctors will tell you, do you have a gun in your home? And they make you feel bad that you might not be a responsible mother if you were to have a gun in your home. Well, I would say just the opposite. It allows you to have a fighting chance against someone who would invade your home. And on top of that, when I was looking at these statistics, I found out that a child in a home with a residential swimming pool is 100 times more likely to die than a young child in a home with a firearm. 100 times. Have you ever heard NBC or ABC or CBS report that? I don't think so. So I looked at all these statistics, and then because I'm a constitutional lawyer, I wanted to kind of peel back on the history of the Constitution and the Second Amendment. And we were very lucky as a society to have the Supreme Court in 2008, in this famous case, DC versus Heller, uphold the right, the individual right, to defend ourselves. And I started thinking about the contrast of the Supreme Court justices who like to say that our Constitution is a living document. So they like to invent new constitutional rights that are not in the black letter law of the Constitution, but they would like to kill certain parts of the Constitution that are actually written in there. For example, the Second Amendment. So I did some research on this, and there are only 2 other times in the Constitution where an individual right of the people is guaranteed. And it's so exciting because we're doing one of them right now. It's the First Amendment, the right to petition and to assemble and petition our government. So we're using our First Amendment individual right now. The other individual right that's protected by the U.S. Constitution is the Fourth Amendment, to be safe from unreasonable searches and seizures. So our Second Amendment right is similar to our First Amendment and our Fourth Amendment right in that it accrues to our own individual selves. It's not something, it's like Amanda was saying, we are the militia. So you can look at it various ways. You can look at it as the right of our responsibility as citizens to our government, our relationship to the government, and you can also look at it as our natural right to defend ourselves. And I have done a lot of writing on this in other respects too, talking about concealed carry, how that is a really good solution to some of the problems of terrorism that we face, because people who have criminal intent, they don't know who's armed and who's not armed. So all of us, even those who choose not to carry, benefit from allowing those who have taken the responsibility to learn how to properly carry and to be responsible for it. Not only does it allow us in, kind of extreme examples where there's a terrorist threat, but just generally, the crime rate goes down in states that have citizens enabled, empowered to be able to conceal carry. So that's something else that the legislators sitting in Capitol Hill with the very honorable and so impressive Capitol Police who protect them, and the snipers on the roof of the White House right over there protecting President Obama and his family. We do not have that luxury for our homes, so it's easy for them to legislate our rights away, but we are here today to stand up for that right. And I would like to say something and have you all repeat it back. Guns make women safer.
Guns make women safer.
One more time, even louder.
Guns make women safer.
So it's such an honor to be with you all today, and I hope you will just continue to carry this message back to your states. We cannot have enough people who take away these false statistics, who defeat the myths of gun ownership, who don't allow the mainstream media to dictate the narrative on the vitality of the guns being the great equalizer for women, and to remember that our history, our Constitution was set up so that we have the rights of free citizens, and no one should have the ability to take that away. And you all give me hope that that will not happen in this generation. Thank you all.
Wow. I think that's what a rally speaker's supposed to sound like, actually. Now that I've heard it, I know what it looks like. So, very thankful for the clouds, but I don't want to get anybody wet. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank anybody here that, whether you're pro-gun or anti-gun, I appreciate you listening to our message. And I think it's hilarious that, I don't know, maybe I should ask the people who do rallies. I wonder if there's heels that come off at all the other rallies. So, God bless you. Thank you, Second Amendment. Thank you, Constitution. People in that house, please, please, please do what's right and stick with the good guys of the Constitution. They were pretty, they were just asking me about the Constitution and the Founding Fathers, and I was like, you know what? What? I feel you. I feel it too. Anyway, my deal was I thought they were pretty smart guys, and I'm going to stick with the guys who wrote the Constitution instead of the ones that don't sound so smart in there. Amen. Let's round it up. Thanks, Dianna. Thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you, police.